We've seen plenty of surprises so far in the World Cup. Another one today. These were the scenes in Moscow as Diego Aspas's penalty was saved, which guaranteed Russia a spot in the quarter-finals of the World Cup, eliminating Spain on penalties. Another twist to what has been quite a 2 weeks in Russia. Russia, we know, will be facing Croatia as they advance after a penalty shootout win against Denmark. We'll be talking about that game a little later on, but for now, I'm joined by Ali Moreno, Brian McBride, Steve McManaman and Criag Burley. Sid Lowe will be here in a moment, but boys, let's start, shall we, with Russia against Spain. And as much as you want to credit Russia for doing what they did, they defended brilliantly throughout. For Spain, they lost this game.
Oh yeah, they were really disappointing, weren't they? They were caught between two styles, whether to want to pass the ball around nicely, or play to Diego Costa up front. For the love of I mean, I love Fernando Hierro, but why he chose 5 midfielders and had Koke further back in defensive areas than Busquets, and then 3 of the same players in front, when they knew they were going to control the game and have more possession. And they couldn't change it. They haven't got the personnel up front, unfortunately. They had in the past, they haven't now. Aspas, Rodrigo, Diego Costa, the way they play is not the style for them.
Over 1,000 passes in the game, the stat that kind of sums it up. Isco had 132, 12 of them went forward.
I mean, team selection, as Maka said, you've got one of the best attacking fullbacks in world football on the bench in Carvajal. You've got arguably one of the best passers of a ball that's ever been in the game. One of the best unlocking a defence that's ever been in a game in Iniesta. In a game where, who's on the bench, in a game where you're going to have 75-80% possession, they're going to have everybody behind the ball, and he's not playing. So that was strange for starters. The other side of the coin was, I don't know who I was more bored with, Russia or Spain, because I expected Russia to do what they did.
Sure.
But I didn't expect Spain to play as slowly, as the passes are going back the way. And for God's sake, you don't have to score the perfect goal every time that's going to win goal of the tournament by 25 passes and then dribbling it into goal. Have a shot. Pop it up the Costa, follow you. I know it's tight there, but play it around the corner, follow it, and get some strikes. Because one of the weak points of Russia is Akinfeev, the goalkeeper. Yep. He's got a blunder in him. But if you're not getting strikes at goal, he's just happy to let his defence do the job in front of him, and then he mops up whenever he can. I thought it was pretty dreadful from Spain.
And Diego Costa never got a kick today, did he? No. He tried his best. He ran and he ran and he ran across the line and showed. But anything that went up to him only went up to him from about 15 yards. Nobody pumped the ball up. When Russia were attacking, nobody cleared the lines and let him do what he does best.
And that was the crazy
thing. It was really disappointing.
When you have someone who has the ability, Diego Costa, to hold the ball up and be able to either win a header or at least hold the ball up and connect to a certain pass. The problem was they didn't have anybody underneath. I mean, you could have put Silva closer to him. You could have put somebody that basically allowed that outlet straight forward, even if it was just 15 yards. Because, let's face it, Russia sat back into that they were probably 15 yards from front to back. And to get an opening to have a shot from distance is difficult even then. So,
you're going to play quicker around the corner and try and follow and get some strikes.
And second balls. Then you get people up closer to if you're going to play the ball in. You look at their goal comes on a ball that comes in from wide. And it wasn't even them who touched it. Yeah. I mean, it can be ugly. And it wasn't for Spain. It was just dreadfully boring.
I think David Silva typified Spain for me. David Silva, like a lot of them, didn't have a good competition. But I tell you what, his worst performance for Man City is an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
Every week, 8 out of 10 minimum, right? But even he was off his game.
We mentioned Diego Costa. They don't even look to playing to Diego Costa at times. It's like he's running by himself in a different game entirely. Outside of that, there's a lot of sideways and back passing, right? And it's back and it's sideways and back and sideways and back again. And they do that time and time again. At some point, I was wondering, okay, if you have Marco Asensio on the field because he's going to go take somebody on, because that's the one guy that is out on the field that perhaps can beat somebody in a 1v1 situation. If he's able to break somebody down, then everybody else from Russia has to adapt to that, have to react to that. So you break your guy, 1v1, now somebody slides over, then there's a space to play. Never, ever during the course of 120 minutes did we see really Spain trying to take somebody on. So it's just passing. And let's not forget, because we can criticize Spain as to what they did or didn't do offensively, but they're winning the game 1-0, and it's the height of stupidity by Gerard Piqué on the penalty kick. what is he doing? So at 1-0, at some point, Russia was going to have to come up. If you just keep the ball, and that's what you're going to do with Spain, you're going to win the game 1-0. Russia doesn't have enough in the attack. But then what in the world is going on through his head when he goes up for the header, then brings the arms down, and then says, you know what, it's a good idea now that we have VAR in the game and they can really see this and take another look at this. Let me put my arm up again. It's incredible amount of stupidity for a player of that caliber, for a player of that level. Should not happen. Spain should have won this game one way or another. Even if it was ugly offensively, they still were up 1-0, and Russia should not be scoring on Spain regardless.
Let's bring in our Spanish football expert, Sid Lowe, to the show. Sid, who's getting the blame?
Well, I think tomorrow we'll see this really kind of be talked through. But what's happened, and I think this is very interesting, and it speaks very clearly to what you lot are talking about in terms of the role of Diego Costa, is over the last week, there's been a discussion in Spain, I think for the very first time since 2008, or certainly since 2010 when Spain won the World Cup, about the style. About not just whether or not you play well, but how you play, how you go about the game. And there have been people talking about the need for a revolution in the Spanish team, not just in terms of, you know, we take this guy out, we take that guy out, we change players, but we change the way we play. And Hierro has defended Spain's style, but made changes today, which I think were concessions to a different type of style. So if you're saying, right, I want to keep the ball, I want to play possession football, but then you put Coque in instead of Thiago, I want to play that Spanish style, but you've got Costa still in the side, and you don't put, for example, Iago Aspas in there. I want to play that style, but you take Andres Iniesta out. And I think what we saw today was this kind of awkward, hybrid Spanish team that was neither one thing nor the other. And to put this in very simple terms for you, I was really struck by this. When Russia scored the penalty, that was their second shot on goal. Spain had still not had any. They were 1-0 up because of an own goal. They had not had any shots in that first half. And as you were all rightly saying, you can play long to Costa. But if that's not your style, don't do it. In which case, don't play Costa. Do something else. And I think Spain lacked a clarity in terms of what it is they wanted to do as they came into this game, and then, of course, all the way through the game as well.
We talked, of course, at length going into this World Cup about what happened, boys, regarding Lopetegui, Hierro coming in. How much of a difference does that make to what we saw today? How much you lay the blame at Lopetegui's door, at the Spanish FA's
I mean,
door?
the way Lopetegui went about, I've got no problem with the Spanish FA because the way Lopetegui signed a contract without informing them, 2 or 3 days before the World Cup is bang out of order, and he should be gone, to be very honest. And I've got no problem with that. And the team would have invariably picked itself. It was just the style of play and the way they couldn't change it from style A to style B. As Ali said, Asensio wide or Lucas Vazquez, somebody play wide who can take a man on to try and unlock the defence to go round the outside. Asensio played today and cut inside every single time onto his left foot. Lucas Vazquez didn't play today, but has played and has played poorly. To have Coque and Busquets on, Busquets is one of the best sitting midfielders that we've got and that we've ever seen. Yeah, he played further forward because Coque was there. It's like against Russia, you don't need to do that because you're going to dominate possession. You've got 2 defensive midfielders and the 2 centre defenders behind you who are more than capable of bringing the ball out into defence and committing midfielders. So whoever was picking the team, or whether Fernando Hierro was under pressure from certain quarters to choose people, I just thought his decision-making today was really bad. You'd have Iniesta playing in this game all day long, regardless of the criticism that he's received, because he's much better than the other midfielders they've got.
That being said, who they had on the field was still more than enough to win this game. They didn't apply themselves properly. They played the game as if they thought it was just going to happen. We'll have 60-70% possession, and eventually it will happen, and we'll break them down. And you can clearly see Russia were playing for one thing, and one thing only. It was evident from about an hour onwards. But you've got to move the ball quicker. You've got to have more drive. And they had to OK, you can talk about Iniesta not playing, which we have, and you can talk about Carvajal and the rest of them. But that Spain side, if it played to its full potential at pace, would have won that game.
They haven't played to the full potential at pace. The warning signs with Morocco, they got the late goal by Aspas, and they did exactly the same. They were 2-1 down, and they went side to side to side, and there was no penetration at all. And again, they get a cross, and the Aspas goal goes in off a quick corner eventually. But it wasn't, this great goal that they've scored. It's a bit like Germany. The warning signs have been there all along. And sometimes you must just think, whether it's arrogance, we've done it before, we'll just click into gear, it'll be fine this next game. And they've come really unstuck, and they'll get criticised heavily for it, because this was one of the worst performances I've seen for a while, regarding forgetting possession nonsense stats and passing ability.
Oh, don't say that. Don't say that. They'll be out for you.
Yeah, to your point, Spain, 4 matches in this World Cup, 3 draws. Right?
Yeah.
And it's not like they play the highest quality of competition, right? And the game that they did win was against Iran on a knee bash goal by Diego Costa. That was an accidental goal. That's the sort of level that we've seen from Spain. And so we thought that they would be better, but maybe they're not. Maybe this is the version of Spain, and until they don't sort out what is it that Diego Costa does for this team, or whoever plays up front for this team, then you're not going to go anywhere, because you have no other options. You don't know any other options, and you haven't implemented any other options as part of your style. You said that this is your style. At some point, you have to adjust during the match, and that is something that Spain does very poorly.
And maybe it's the end of their cycle.
Yeah.
You know, we've had it with Germany. We're certainly going to have it with Argentina, aren't we? It's the end of a lot of their big players, and it's certainly going to be the end of a lot of the good players from Spain now, because it just looked as if they just had enough now.
Well, they've got most of these players are having a winter break.
That's obviously Sid, I imagine it's all going to unravel more over the next few days regarding the Spanish media and the coverage of what happened at the start of the tournament regarding Lopetegui and the Spanish FA. But how much blame can be put to the door of that situation from what we saw today?
Well, of course, that's what begins all of this. That's the conditioning factor. And actually, Fernando Hierro post-game, who, bear in mind that when he comes in, he talks immediately about, right, this is a difficult situation, very tough, but we're going to walk through it and we're going to come out the other side. And then he even said at the very start, I'm not going to change very much. We're just going to kind of calm this down and move on. Today, he went back to it. And today he said, look, I took over 3 days before the Portugal game, 3 days before our World Cup started. And I think what he was doing was reminding people that if not necessarily the way they played as such, but the kind of the conditioning factors around this were very, very significant indeed. And I think that will be revisited. And I think in a way it's natural to, isn't it? I mean, it's very difficult to look at this World Cup with Spain and not go back to the fact that, well, look, 2 days before they started, they didn't have a manager. The next day they had a manager who, by the way, less than 48 hours earlier had said, I have no intention of ever managing the Spanish national team. 48 hours later, he's there in charge. You've got a whole load of players who then think, well, we've got a manager who is taking on a structure, a style, a set of players that he hasn't chosen and trying to get the best out of them. And I think that creates a series of conditions, a series of factors that mean it's very, very difficult to play at your best. But it's worth pointing something out here. Those last 2 friendlies that Spain played, while Lopetegui was still there before the World Cup, they were also pretty terrible. And a lot of the things that we've seen, a lot of the flaws we've seen during this tournament, we saw then too. So maybe there was a bit of continuity, and actually in a way what needed to be done was to arrest that, to stop that, to prevent that continuity happening, because Spain didn't play well in those 2 friendlies either.
Having said all that, Sid, this is a massive surprise, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is, 100%. I mean, look, I'm going to be honest with you. When Spain were, and I think they were, incredibly fortunate to come out of that Morocco game, not just going through, but going through in first place. And I don't want to get into the whole debate about what's the easier side of the draw or not. So I'm just going to make the assumption that they went into what was theoretically the easier side of the draw. At that point, I thought, this is what they need. They go into that half of the draw, they kind of get the chance to start again, if you like. They've got lots of great players. It's Russia who, yes, they're at home, yes, they've got all their fans there, but it's Russia. A Russia side who don't really genuinely believe they can beat Spain. And at that point, yeah, it's a huge surprise. And then the other element to this surprise, of course, is the really obvious one. Spain scored first. Once that happened, this result should never have been in any doubt whatsoever.
Thank you very much, Sid Lowe. I hope that's not your rental car in the background. A safe trip back to Europe. So Russia through to the quarter-final, which I don't think anyone would have envisaged at the start of certainly what we saw in the friendlies. And then in the second game, we saw Croatia beat Denmark on penalties. This wasn't a particularly good match, wasn't very entertaining. And we were talking, and we've given a lot of love to Croatia after their performance in the group stages, but they were a bit flat.
Well, the difference here was, and the difference with this game and the Argentina game, they were playing a dishevelled, disorganised Argentina that left pockets of holes that Rakitic and Modric in particular, Mandzukic, Perisic could operate in. The one thing Denmark are, like a few teams, like Russia, like Sweden, like Switzerland, they're not always great in the eye, but they're super organised. And that, for somebody like Croatia, just made it more problematic. And I tell you, I didn't think Denmark could be as competitive as they were in the whole tournament and in this game, but credit to them for it. But it was I think we'll see a better Croatia, possibly against Russia if they get space to operate.
Yeah. What about Luka Modric? Right? You miss a penalty, but you have a penalty saved in extra time, and you still step up and you take a penalty in the shootout.
Yeah.
And score it.
Right, and score it, albeit just centimeters away from the toe of Schmeichel. But yeah, that's confidence. Yeah, and I think for me the difference in this game is both teams are really good on second balls. There's a lot of balls, whether they're throw-ins from Denmark into the penalty area, and the surprising thing for me in Croatia was there was times when Modric or Rakitic had actual space in front of them, and they still elected to play the diagonal ball over the top or go long instead of driving into that space. And you saw in extra time and in the overtime period that they started taking that space and getting more chances and causing more problems. But having said that, they come out on the end on top at the penalties, and you'll see. I agree. You'll see a different Croatia team.
To your point, I don't care how confident you are. I don't care what level of player you are. If you had just missed a penalty that would have given you the win, and now you have to go into a penalty kick shootout, and then everybody's looking at you, your team captain, you're Luka Modric, you're one of the guys, you're going to have to grab that ball. There are nerves there. Of course there's nerves. I don't care how confident you are, you're thinking, I'm going to score this, but there's a part of your mind that is also saying, well, what if I miss this?
Yeah, of course.
What happens now? And so he stepped up, and it was a nervous penalty. He goes down the middle and barely makes it through. But in the end, Croatia, I think the better team advances, although there were times in this game where Denmark, it's just that they took Croatia to a point in which Denmark were creating opportunities. They just don't have enough in the attacking half. And in the end, it's just see you later, Denmark. Croatia moves on, and I think they have a real opportunity to truly advance in the tournament.
Imagine. What numbers do you want to take it, Luka? You'd be like,
yeah.
11.
Let me think. Let me think. Maybe 4.
But it was a crazy game because obviously you saw the first 2 goals coming in the opening 4 minutes.
Yeah.
You thought, wow, anything can happen here.
Yeah,
then nothing happened.
Yeah, it looked really lively, didn't it? Then both teams just settled back, as the stats showed. Croatia had slightly more of the ball, but Denmark, as we all thought, were very organised. We're going to try and hit them on the counter-attack. We're very strong physically, worked hard. So it was a close enough game. I think I'm with Ali. I think Croatia probably just deserved to go through. But we expected the quality to be much better than we saw. It
was interesting because obviously with Spain going out, Craig was saying now he thinks England go all the way.
Yeah.
What?
Come on, England.
World Cup, because
the path, I can see the path.
You take a look at that side of the bracket.
Look, it's there.
Obviously, it's opened up, isn't it? This is the suggestion now.
Don't use that.
For any of those 8 sides on the right, well, then obviously not Spain. But any of those 6 sides remaining, this is a real chance, isn't it, to make it all the way to the final?
You're Sweden and Switzerland as well, 2, unfancy teams all of a sudden.
Hey, it's all about England, Craig. It's all about.
Oh, sorry, I was coming down the bracket. Listen, I think obviously now, I think that's going to be a great game, Colombia-England. I mean, I don't think James is going to be fit. I'm interested to see what Southgate's team will be. I kind of think it might not be too far from the team he played in the first game, whether Sterling comes back in or not. What are you laughing at?
Nothing.
What do you want me to say?
No, nothing. I'm just.
But I tell you what, write off Colombia at your peril.
Sure. Yeah.
Write them off at your. James or not. I think
what we've seen so far, and we've seen France and Uruguay qualify on the other side of the bracket, and we've seen Russia and Croatia play today. Yeah. That other side of the bracket, France and Uruguay were far stronger than the 2 teams that have qualified today. Sure. Regardless of whether England get through, this side of the bracket, then you've got Sweden, Switzerland, and England, Colombia. This side's easier than the other side. I don't care what you say.
But from an Englishman, you're taking.
So if you're an Englishman and you've seen Croatia today and Russia, and you think, if we beat Colombia, we've got another European side, then we've got Croatia or Russia.
Yeah.
You, of course, you'd take it all day long, wouldn't you?
I got to be honest, though. Colombia can also look at this and say, hey, it's open up for us as well. I understand that there's some English love here, but I got to say, Colombia looks at it and said,
and Sweden will look at it and think, oh, we've got a chance as well. Of course they will. All the teams on that side of the bracket will look at and think, you know what? There's nothing really to scare us.
The English bookmakers are excited, though. England third favourites to win the world. This is a team, remember, don't get excited about. Don't get your hopes up. That was rhetoric at the start of the tournament.
Take more money off the English public.
11-2 to win the World Cup. Colombia, by the way, 18 to 1.
Hey!
Brazil against Mexico kicks things off then on Monday. 5-1 on Brazil, Mexico. 130 to advance to the quarterfinals. However, if you're Mexican and you want a little bit of optimism, you take a look at when these two teams have met over recent competitions, and it isn't all bad news. You take a look, it was a 0-0 draw in the World Cup, of course, last time round. They beat them in the group stage of the Copa America back in 2007, beat them in the Olympics as well. Confederations Cup, victory against them in the group stage. Am I persuading any of you, gentlemen, that maybe, just maybe Mexico can advance here?
Nope.
Oh, good, right.
Well, if you're getting pumped off Sweden 3-0
yeah.
in the last group game, I don't think it. And I think this is a better Brazilian side, by the way, than some of those. So no.
Yeah. No. Confederations Cup and things like that don't count.
They're not bothered about that.
Don't count.
I wouldn't imagine.
They may take a little hope in the fact that they beat somewhat similar group in the Olympic final, but I just think that if Mexico has any chance in this, they have to make sure that they're extremely compact defensively, and then when they win it, basically spread out and try and make sure Brazil is spread out and commit players one-on-one. Because for me, that's the way Mexico really excels against teams that are technically very good. They struggle when they try and go one-on-one all over the field, even defensively, especially against a Brazil team like this.
Ali, part of me thinks this game might be a bit bonkers tomorrow.
There's going to be goals,
isn't there? Yeah, like a 4-3, like compared to maybe what we saw today, nervy affairs.
Did you say 4-3?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Mexico getting 3 against Brazil.
I don't know. I think it's
when was you at that bar? Was it?
I think it's going to be.
Is it worn off yet or what?
I think it's going to be a high-scoring match.
What I would say about Mexico is that they have a tendency, not only this group, but in their history, that when they play against teams that are supposed to be a higher caliber, higher level sort of squad, they rise up. They make it competitive. So they're not going to be intimidated by Brazil, and I think that they will give Brazil everything that they can handle. However, when it comes to then talent and execution in key moments, who do you trust here? Who do you pick? Do you want Neymar, do you want Coutinho, or do you want Chicharito or Andrés Guardado? The truth of the matter is that there's no point of comparison there. It's all about Brazil. And this is a team that I think is improving and continuously getting better. Brazil will be open, and so will be Mexico. So I'm with you. I think it's going to be back and forth, but it's going to be all Brazil in the end.
I've heard as well Chicharito's dyed his hair blonde.
Well, that's a good thing. That's going to make a difference.
Who would do that at a major tournament? Hey, what idiot would do that?
Stupid idiot. Well, listen. You know, we look at. Oh, we're talking about Belgium.
We've got to talk about Belgium.
I don't want to talk about Belgium, Japan.
Well, they're 1-7. They're even shorter than Brazil.
They are indeed. They are big favourites to advance. Everyone's saying Belgium before Craig can make his very important final point.
Well, there's been a lot of surprises in this tournament. No.
There's a
Belgium.
Yeah. Right, what did you want to say?
No, I'm not saying I'm doing it now yet.
That's it, he's done.
You dropped that graphic in a very inopportune time.
Looking at this, Belgium should be fine, yeah?
Belgium should be fine now, and Belgium should be fine to advance as we continue in the tournament.
You agree, Brian?
Yeah, well, I mean, if they get past Japan, but the next match is going to be a little bit more difficult.
It will indeed. Thank you very much, boys. We'll be back tomorrow, of course, to look back at those matches and look ahead to the future World Cup winners, England against Colombia.
Hello.